So is this the last session? Are we all AI'd out and everybody's now familiar with AI and IoT and robotics and know everything about it, right? So that's the fun part of coming towards the end, the last day, one of the last sessions, and there's not much new, I think, that I'm going to share. And I might actually speed through some of these slides. I want to also make it a more interactive session, so if you have any questions, I don't want to wait till the end. If you have a question on a particular slide, just raise your hand and we'll address it right there and then. The other thing I was also going to do was really weave around stories as opposed to go around defining or go more factually, because I think you've heard a lot about it during the past 2 days and today. Let's see if this works. So AI, the buzzword, right? Everybody is talking about it, thinking about it, writing about it. There's major discussions, there's major events like these happening about AI. And you hear both good that's going to come out of it, you hear the evil that's going to come out of it. It could be the end of mankind, or it could be the beginning of the new, mankind, right? So how do we think about AI and why is it such a big deal? One thing that I will say that I've realized is this is one of the technologies that's moving at a much faster pace than any of the other technologies. AI is coming at us much faster and much smarter. And the biggest reason is because companies are investing like crazy. Like just today I read that Jack Ma put in $15 billion into researching some particular AI strain. You look at it like Amazon has got its Alexa, Apple has Siri, IBM has Watson. All these companies are investing billions of dollars. That just means that this technology will develop very, very fast. And it's going to hit us fast. And that's why there's so much fear and so much hype around it. And I'm sure this has been covered, but if you look, AI it's not a new term. It was originally, the term was coined in 1956 in the Dartmouth conference in Hanover. And it's gone through its own hype cycles, right? You've all heard about AI winters. There's a lot of investment, there's a lot of hype, and then nothing really comes out of it, and then it dies, and then it rises up again. But this time, there's much more reality connected to the hype. You can actually see things moving. There are self-driving cars, as an example, thing that would have, that was part of our imagination in the 80s. But today, it's real. Or you think about drones that fly over remote locations and help in rescue operations. That was not really possible a few decades ago. So why is AI progressing so fast today? A lot of it has to do with the enormous amounts of data. A lot of us spend a lot of time online, which is feeding into that data, which enables AI. And the second part is obviously compute. Cheap compute available. You just need to get into AWS and you have massive compute power available, which wasn't available a couple of decades ago. I will go back to this, but I think Bhanu also touched on it, but I do want to kind of guardrail us around how we think about AI because it's such a broad scope. So artificial narrow intelligence, in my view, is a form of AI that can solve a specific problem that a human being can solve. It could be even better than the human being, but it's just one narrow use case that it's solving. Think of a chess-playing robot. That's narrow intelligence. Artificial general intelligence is a form of AI where it can do anything that a human can do, right from the emotional aspect to the intelligence aspect. And artificial superintelligence is a form of intelligence which will be smarter than all the human beings combined. And today what we see, and you'll probably agree with me, is a lot of narrow intelligence, being AI enabling us to solve specific problems smarter and faster. I haven't seen many scenarios where general intelligence and super intelligence is still very, very far away, right? So how do we actually leverage narrow intelligence? And possibly it could be Lego blocks that add up and build out this general intelligence, or it could be completely new methodologies. So based on what I've seen, the technologies that exist today, the techniques that exist today, I think artificial narrow intelligence will really reach its potential in the next decade or so. And then we can start scratching the surface on artificial general intelligence. So I bet you haven't seen this slide in anybody else's presentation. Did anybody else have a steam engine in their presentation? Okay. So for about 8,000 years, when humankind was just evolving, the general population stayed close to 500 million. There was not much change in the kind of tools we used or the way we lived or how we lived. There wasn't much change. But towards the end of the 17th century, early 18th century, there was a massive change. And this was the reason. Our population grew rapidly from 500 million to over 5 billion in a few decades. And what happened? What was that, what did the steam engine enable us to do? The invention of steam, or the ability to capture that energy, helped us extend human muscle power. Prior to that, it was all dependent on the human muscle power. We didn't have a way to generate energy outside the human power and then actually use it. And the invention of the steam engine led to the way the population lived, led to huge changes in the economic conditions. It changed the way people lived, how we lived, where we lived, how we made money, how manufacturing was done. There were huge changes that happened during that time period. And I think AI is driving a similar revolution where we are now, it's the time for our brain power to get extended. How do we actually, what happens when human brain power gets extended? And if you take a step back, it's not, it's this time, it's not just about AI. There are similar technologies which could be equally huge by itself, whether it's 3D printing or augmented reality and virtual reality. It's like all these technologies are growing at the same time, and it's going to cause a huge revolution in our lifestyles. So, we're going to play a game. I want to make sure that all of you are awake. If you look back and see, change is the one constant in all of our lives. And what I was going to do was give you some examples of how change has really impacted us in different areas. And then hopefully we can all arrive at a conclusion together once we complete this exercise. 100 years ago, computer was somebody's job title. Did you all know that a computer was actually a job title? And then it became a machine. Right? So that's a huge change. So if you look back, the comparison between 1917 and 2017, the literacy rate of the world was 23%. Can you guess what the literacy rate is today in 2017? Anything? 86%. The average price of a car in the US in 1917 was $400. And I think this one is an easy guess. I'm sure most of you know this. The average price of a car, leaving aside a Tesla, but the average price of a car today is in the range of $35,000. Phones. How many people used phones 100 years ago? Only 8% of people had landlines in the US in 1917. And today, 80% of them have people don't even use landlines anymore. They have smartphones where they have access to all the data possible in one device. 80% of them have smartphones. The global population, and I think this will be an easy one, 100 years ago was close to 2 billion. Any guess on what the global population is today? Yeah. About 7.5 billion. The maximum speed limit in 1917 was 10 miles per hour. And today, it's 70 miles per hour. This is an interesting one. The major tech innovation, the biggest innovation in 1917 was a toggle switch for turning a light on and off. That was the largest invention in 1917. What is the largest invention for this year? Or between 2016 and 2017, what would you say is the largest invention we've seen? And I want to hear some answers on this one. Smartphones? Any guesses? What is the largest invention that you've heard of in the past 2 years? Too many? Gene editing. We are able to modify our own genes. Can you imagine the impact of that? So what all this tells us is that change is going to happen. Change happens, but it also shows us that it didn't really, destroy mankind. It didn't reduce us in any way. Wouldn't you say life today is more comfortable compared to, say, 100 years ago? And economists have proven that the living conditions actually improve with change. The mortality rate reduces. And why is it now that we are so fearful about change? And that's because of the unique, conflict that's always existed between technology and labor. If you look back at the first industrial revolution, it changed the whole, you caused a huge change in how jobs were done, right? There was a lot of jobs that were lost and a lot of jobs that were created. And what happens is during that in-between time when the change is happening, it's scary because we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, standing here today, that AI is not going to take away my job 10 years from now or 2 years from now. And neither do you, right? And we are in this in-between phase, and we're trying to find the equilibrium. And it raises a lot of questions on, what will the new jobs look like? How are we going to reskill our workforce? What are people going to do when they have no work? What's going to happen to the workforce that's the future workforce that's going to come in with our children coming into the workforce? So those are all the interesting questions that rises. I just believe that we are in that in-between phase where we still don't know how all this is going to impact us, and we've seen that you just have to look at history to see how this has happened continuously throughout mankind's existence. So this is a robot making a cocktail for, oh, sorry, do you need a break? Oh, my time is up. So this is a robot making a cocktail, and if you look at it, it's actually helping us live a life better, or at least happier, right? Because it's serving us. So my time is up, so I have to stop there. If there's any questions, I'll take it offline.
Ma'am, excuse me. It's fine, it's fine.
Are there any questions?
Literacy rate of the world is 86%. I mean, is it of the world or is it specifically of the US?
Sorry, what's that?
In one of your slides, there was a literacy rate of 86%, right, in 2017.
Yeah,
Is it of the world or is it specifically of the US?
I think it's of the world. It was a globe. It's from the UN report,
Okay.
but I could be wrong.